Hey guys, Hybrid here.
And this is White Sheep, or CJ, and Josh. Whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever you choose to call
I
us.
think this is number 42 or 43.
I'm going to go with 42, because I think 40 was the first one this season.
Yeah, we got that totally wrong last episode.
Oops.
We're like, oh, this is 40. Nope, it was 40. Yeah, it's 42. Okay.
Okay, good. I don't want to be wrong twice.
Yeah.
We really need to start keeping track of that, but that's not a good thing to just let go unchecked.
We have an unexpected matchup
We do.
this evening.
A random matchup appeared. Yes, this one is probably something that a lot of people didn't see coming.
Villains.
But we really wanted to get a Sentinel in there. I think this started with us wanting to get, like, a Sentinel
No,
in
it
there.
started with me being like, I want to do Optimus Prime, and then you're like,
Except no.
okay, find someone for Optimus Prime. And I was like, I can't. And then we were like, because we're trying to do, we're really trying this season to balance out like villain matchups, hero matchups, anti-hero, female, male, all that stuff. So then we ended up getting to a point where we need more villains, and we're like, why don't we do Megatron? So we did Megatron, like, who could go against Megatron? And then we saw X-Men Days of Future Past and like Sentinels. We're like, a Sentinel would work, and then, kind of went from there.
The main bad, Decepticon versus the main bad Sentinel. So Nimrod versus Megatron was born. And anyways, this is actually a really, really good matchup. Megatron is really powerful as a giant robot should be.
Megatron's a badass, and
in
I'll
my
get to that when
opinion,
I get to him.
in my opinion, Nimrod is more powerful. And can you guess which one of these two guys I have? I'm starting, by the way, so I'm just going to go ahead. I have Nimrod, Josh has Megatron, and without further ado, let's just go. Alright, Nimrod. He's an advanced Sentinel, originally from the alternate future known as Earth 811, which is the Days of Future Past timeline. He is the most advanced and powerful Sentinel of that Earth. He is the only Nimrod Sentinel, as he is a prototype and has traveled to many Earths, and Nimrod died when he self-destructed in New X-Men number 247 in August 1989. Yeah, so he was a prototype, actually. And it's actually interesting how he got activated. I think it was, I'm trying to remember, it was Kitty Pryde and someone else, they were just, going to sabotage the project which they had heard about, which was going to make a much more powerful Sentinel, and they accidentally woke it up, and thus Nimrod was born. And it's rumored that there are other Nimrod-class Sentinels in different worlds. Alright, let's just jump into abilities. Nimrod has superhuman strength, speed, durability, senses, energy projection, flight. He can teleport. He has size manipulation. He can time travel very rarely, and he can adapt to any threat that poses, anything that poses an actual real threat to him. And we'll just jump to strength. That is a full 7 bars, maximum 100 tons. That's a lot, folks. Nimrod was built to face the strongest of the mutants and powerful superhumans such as Juggernaut, so he could actually stop them with his strength. But he's also the adapting thing. I'll get to that in a little bit when we get to his extras. But his adaptability is really the key for him, as he can change himself to meet the threats that he encounters. And his speed is warp speed. He can move at speeds faster than a normal human, fly, and actually the important thing here is he can teleport. So he can just teleport around anything that Megatron would be trying to throw at him. And his intelligence is gifted, and he has what would be considered a gifted intellect. He can analyze mutants, track them down, and adapt to just stomp them into the ground. He's also really, really, really good at fighting. He's experienced. Nimrod was made with the sole purpose of killing mutants, and since his activation he's been fighting mutants from various timelines and granting him a lot of experience. And again, I would stress that the adaptability thing ties in here. Since he can analyze mutants and actually adapt to the mutants that he knows, his fighting styles would be different. And so that while that's an experienced, I would say it's probably a little bit higher than that, because there isn't a way of, in our system, there's not a way of, recording what Nimrod does. Durability. He's indestructible. He's made of extremely durable material, and that's because he combats powerful mutants. And he also possesses healing factor to repair himself at atomic levels. It's actually... Some speculate that he can control the molecules that make him up at atom molecular level. He can control all of himself, and that's why he can heal. But he can only heal to a limited degree, so it's not like if you just completely blow him up, he's going to repair himself. But he can also generate force fields, which is a big part of that indestructible rating. Energy projection. He has multiple forms. Nimrod can project concussive plasma and disintegration blasts of energy, and he can also manipulate magnetic and gravitational fields to a limited extent. So he's a little bit like Magneto in the fact that he can move metal around, and he can levitate metal objects, and that causes opponents to not be able to move due to the amount, and he can cause opponents to not be able to move due to the amount of force on them. And here's the extras. Nimrod also has the ability to travel across time streams, which is how he jumps to different worlds in his goal to eradicate all mutants. But he can't really focus this ability, and so he doesn't use that often. And honestly, in this fight, while it's cool, I don't really see how he would use it that much. Nimrod also can change his size and appearance, which is a big part of that adaptability thing that I was talking about, which is probably the biggest reason why I think that he would win other than teleportation. So with that, I'm just going to turn it over to Josh before I rebut his argument that will mostly be made of Matthew Bay and explosions.
It's Michael Bay.
He does not deserve for me to get his name right.
Maybe involved, but yeah, if you couldn't tell, essentially, I'd say Nimrod probably is the only Sentinel that really could be compared to Megatron, especially with the whole size manipulation thing. That's obviously very key. But yeah, so let's get on with this. So a little bit of background on Megatron. Megatron was once an Energon miner until he got tired of the caste system that the society had that he lives on. If you don't know, the Megatron we're using is obviously from comics, from IDW Comics. So that's the current publisher of the Transformers series, based on the G1 series, which everybody loves. So I highly recommend it. It's pretty good. But anyways, he's actually an alien. A lot of people think he's just like a robot made by man. No, he's an alien from a planet called Cybertron. So basically, Cybertron had a caste system from the bots. I'm just gonna call them the bots. But anyways, the bots there were basically put in different castes by how they appeared. Anyways, that didn't work out, and he was eventually actually falsely accused for a crime he didn't commit by the Cybertronian Senate. And that kind of, afterwards, that kind of really crushed his view of the society, so to speak, and he started to lead an uprising. And his supporters were called Decepticons because he would say stuff like, "You're being deceived," and that obviously got twisted around to be like deception, Decepticons, and there we go. And the Decepticon logo actually is from a broken up Autobot logo Megatron saw at one point, which then he obviously incorporated into Decepticon logo. So his real name is Megatron. It's based off of, if I'm not mistaken, Megatronus Prime, which is one of the original 13 Primes who ends up becoming the Fallen. But his abilities are superhuman strength, speed, durability, senses, intelligence, energy projection, leadership, strategist, transformation, and size manipulation. And he has no equipment because he's basically living equipment when you think about it. So his strength is 100 tons. Megatron is among the strongest Cybertronians. Really, the only ones that really rival him are Optimus Prime and Grimlock. Obviously, I know there's other Cybertronians that are much more larger than him, like Metroplex. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about ones around his same size, like Optimus Prime and Grimlock. Now, moving on, his speed is hypersonic. You see that little star there, transformation? That's because normally in his regular Cybertronian form, he can move faster than a human would, but due to his race, if you don't know, they transform into like any mechanical object pretty much. He could transform into a vehicle in order to travel across space or any environment. So he could turn into a car, a truck, a tank, a jet, a spaceship, whatever it is, he could turn into it. So theoretically, he could actually turn into a Sentinel, and I'll get into that later. But intelligence, he's a genius. Megatron is a brilliant strategist and tactician, and a lot of that, he used that with his cunning and charisma to go from being a lower class miner to a leader of the Decepticons, which arguably hold the second largest population, if not the largest population, against the Autobots, because at times it's been portrayed where the Autobots are obviously the underdogs and they have low numbers, stuff like that. But he's really smart. Even before he became the leader of the Decepticons, he was known for being extremely bright, and also he's a poet. That's pretty cool. And he's really driven. So if he puts his mind to something, he won't be like that traditional villain who kind of goes off on a tangent, he will be focused and he'll do it. Usually his screw-ups come from people like Starscream.
You fail me yet again, Starscream.
But fighting, he's experienced. Believe it or not, Cybertronians live for an extremely long period of time. And Megatron has actually been waging his war against the Autobots for several millennia. Like, this is like tens of thousands of years they've been fighting each other. Across space, too, so that's pretty cool. So he definitely has the experience category filled out. There, at least in my opinion, he does. Now, durability. It's superhuman. I know you might be like, wouldn't it be invincible? But he's actually died a few times throughout Transformers history. He's actually been reincarnated as Galvatron, which is much more powerful. And you may be saying, why didn't we do Galvatron versus Nimrod? Well, that's because we used the comic version, the mainstream comic version, and that's IDW comic, where he's Megatron right now. He's superhuman. He's extremely durable. His whole race is durable, but especially people like him. You know, he's been rivaled to be a Prime. Some people have actually asked if he is a Prime to some degree, just because of, you know, the fact that he fights against Primes. He's actually killed the Prime before Optimus. I can't remember his name right now, but he did do that. That's pretty cool. He's survived a 466 kiloton blast in close range with only cracks visible on his body. And also, he's resisted weapons designed to disintegrate their targets. So that's just a testimony to, you know, him. And that's a really big testimony because he started out from the bottom. And, you know, look where he is now, just out of his, you know, will and dedication and drive. So, energy. Megatron has multiple, he can manipulate multiple forms of energy and project it. He has a fusion cannon attached to his right arm. If you couldn't tell, it's currently pointing at you, the viewer, on the screen. It's pretty awesome, pretty powerful, I must admit. And also, he can produce an Energon Mace and an Omega Whip. Now, the Energon Mace is very similar to the Energon Axe that Optimus Prime has. Basically, it's the opposite of that. And the Omega Whip is an electromagnetic cannon he can kind of transform his arm into, but it can destroy a whole city. It actually has destroyed a whole city in comics. It's crazy, really powerful device or weapon. And also, you could transform it, like I said earlier, into essentially any mechanical device, which leaves almost the potential for energy manipulation at an unlimited source, but he is still technically limited to certain types of energy. So he can't, you know, just be like, I'm going to be a Green Lantern all of a sudden, or anything like that. So the main forms he usually takes is an altered Walther P-38, which is basically just a big-ass gun. He's turned into fighter jets multiple times, and a tank. And also, he has, and we'll just go into his extras now. He's done stuff like impersonate other Cybertronians. He's impersonated Starscream a few times, messing with Starscream especially by doing that. Also, he's a badass. I know he's died a few times, not in comics particularly, but in other media he's died a few times. But he's Megatron, and you don't screw with the Decepticon, especially Megatron. Megatron's greatly feared and respected throughout the Transformers universe for a reason. And yeah, that's
Josh
it for Megatron.
Is making Megatron sound like a good guy.
Well, you kind of have to be compassionate to him to some degree.
His slogan is peace through tyranny.
Well,
I'm sorry, I thought this was America.
Sometimes,
get your non-American things out of here.
I believe in Cybertronian.
This is
logic.
America.
Cybertronian logic dictates everything.
I don't believe you.
Decepticons have been around for, you know, a few couple thousand years for a reason, CJ.
Because they're robots and they live long times.
Robots in disguise.
Nimrod can also be in disguise, but Nimrod doesn't have to be in disguise because he doesn't have to hide because he's not a bitch. He is awesome.
Well, he's dead.
He exploded.
Damn.
But he also, different time forms, there are more than one Nimrod Sentinel. That's right.
He's the only one.
No, they're actually in different time streams. There are different Nimrods. Nimrod series Sentinels exist.
Do you want to go on your spiel about why you think he'll win?
Nimrod's a badass, and it's the sheer fact that he's so adaptable is just why he can't really. You can't say, and the adaptable and the teleportation. Like, he would literally just teleport away from everything that Megatron was trying to do. It's been a long week. Been a long week,
He
folks.
thought. It has been a long week. Oh my god.
That's my
Is
rebuttal.
that your rebuttal?
You can't do it. You're making him sound like a good guy, and he's not.
Okay, I'm not. He's a badass. He's not afraid to, like, both of these people aren't afraid to kill you.
Yeah.
They're villains for a reason. But one thing I think about Megatron that stands out, and yes, Nimrod has all these abilities and blah 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 blah. Let's look at it like this. He's been defeated several
So is
times by
Megatron.
the X-Men.
Megatron always
right?
gets beaten by Optimus Prime.
Oh yeah, Megatron's never
No,
fought
not by
the
the X-Men.
Yeah, Optimus Prime and the Autobots. Let that be clear. And he's killed Optimus
Megatron
Prime
got
before.
beat by Shia LaBeouf like 3 times.
That was in the movies. That does not count. That
Yes,
does not
Nimrod
count.
was beat by the X-Men. Because, I mean, it's a comic book. The X-Men are always going to win, and that's why Megatron will always lose as well. So, but I would say, straight up right now...
At least he's killed
look at
Optimus Prime.
just, folks, go to the stats. Go to the stats. Go to the stats.
This is an uphill battle for me, just because they're essentially even until you get into kind of adaptation. Like the whole adaptation thing that Nimrod has, it kind of doesn't do much because to the same degree, like what is he gonna adapt to? Like a Megatron. Megatron's not a mutant.
The adaptation would be, I mean, because he's programmed to adapt to the X gene, essentially. He's programmed to adapt when he encounters a different mutation, but I think the same principle would apply. There's computers that can learn. I mean, he's based on the principle of a learning computer that adapts to, you know, the inputs that it sees, because that's how computers work. It's input. But in this case, he would see, man, this guy can shift into a giant gun. He can also turn into a jet plane.
Bam.
And he would adapt fairly quickly.
Like I don't know about you, but if I see a few several stories tall, you know, humanoid robot transform into a big ass gun.
And he can manipulate magnetic energy. So if Megatron comes over there, he's just like, I am Megatron. He would just be like,
made out of
magnetic energy, and then.
But he's not made out of magnetic material.
He's made out of metal.
Yeah, but not magnetic.
So Megatron's made out of pennies?
Can't manipulate. No, but he's not made out of like iron or anything. Like he's made out of. They don't ever say what it is in like Cybertronian, but due to the fact that some Cybertronians have electromagnetic equipment or like magnetic equipment, because you know on Cybertron they have their own weapons. They're like their own versions of guns and stuff. They've done things like have like some magnetic weapons. I remember reading one of the issues, Transformers. They had a magnetic weapon which took away like all the like weapons that they had, but they weren't affected. It's just the same principle. Like,
yeah.
But let's be clear here. Megatron has something called, I talked about it earlier, called the Omega Whip, which is a cannon that comes out of his arm that just alone can wipe out a whole city.
Nimrod has something called...
I'm pretty sure point blank
Force
that's gonna
fields?
kill somebody. Like that's gonna kill Nimrod.
Disintegrating blasts.
Yeah, but they're not instant.
Teleportation.
These things don't come out in like a millisecond.
Teleportation.
It takes a while. But it's not instant.
I'm gonna guess the
though. It takes a
Omega
while
Whip
to,
isn't
like,
instant
activate.
either. Because part of
Well,
the
it has
whip
to
is
come
also
out, but-
bringing it back.
Well, it's not an
I know,
actual whip.
I'm
it's just a
joking.
cannon
But
called
yeah,
the
it would have
Omega
to.
Whip.
I would think
Oh.
in the time that he would bring it out, Nimrod would teleport. He'd be like, "Bam, behind you,
Who knows?
bitch." Red wedding.
I think besides energy projection though, hand-to-hand combat, Megatron would kick his ass.
Debatable.
How's that debatable? He's been fighting for tens.
Adaptability.
That's not gonna. You can't like for hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah, you can
when
learn.
it comes to experience. He can learn how to fight and maneuver,
We can
but
learn
I'm pretty
why,
sure.
like how he's coming at, how Megatron is coming at him. Like that's the whole principle behind, I guess, the. Honestly, I would say people like Batman do that. They're not built to be like adaptable in that way, but it's all about reading your opponent and seeing what they're gonna like, guessing what they're gonna do next, making a judgment call. It's that Sherlock Holmes thing, like Guy
I don't
Ritchie
feel
Sherlock
like
Holmes.
his adaptability works in that principle. I feel like it works
Why
more in
not?
the sense where like if
Josh,
you have
you're-
fire powers, he's gonna adapt to be
You're an
resistant
engineer.
to flame.
You're an engineer. It literally, like, okay, think about like a computer.
Yeah, but this is
that
much
can
more
learn.
different than like
No, it's
XG
not.
mutations. This is hand-to-hand combat. Like, if he would be able to adapt to this, like, let's say he can, because they don't obviously explain it so thoroughly that we could, you know, decidedly say yes, it's like this, no, it's like that.
No, they just say.
But like, if it's in this principle, he should never lose any of these fights he's getting in. That with the X-Men at least. Like, I know he's the villain, like you said it perfectly. As the villain of the story, he's bound to lose. Which sucks, considering his power set, he should never lose, but you know.
True. Keep talking for a little bit.
This is an interesting battle.
Michael Bay. That's all I need to say.
Because it really depends on your viewpoint. Like, it could go both way in that sense. Like, if you look at it strictly from like energy projection type of viewership, or perspective, I guess, to be a better word, perspective. Nimrod obviously has they're kind of even in a sense in that way. Like, Nimrod has the much more like upfront, first impression advantage due to his stats. But considering what Megatron can do, and the fact that he has potential for more also, it kind of like I'd be interested to see Megatron attempt to transform into a Sentinel, honestly.
It'd be impressive, but I don't think... Because I think that would take a little bit. Because you've got to figure out how the Sentinels work. That's...
Well, not really.
A little
it's
bit
just
harder
like if
than
you were to
figuring out.
transform
Somebody's
into
drawing a gun. I've got to not get shot. But typically, Nimrod, actually, he's usually not been beaten straight up. When he's been beaten, he's not beaten straight up. He's... I think a good example is one time he was fighting X-Force. And he basically was essentially beaten by, I guess, the limits of his computing, because essentially they asked him something like calculate, I think it was because Nimrod believed that he was going to save lives in some war, and I guess in the war of the future, the Days of Future Past war, and X-Force was like, okay, how many people are going to die? And it was incalculable, and Nimrod shut himself down. So that's really...
So I just have to ask him that question. He stops fighting.
Megatron wouldn't know that.
Wikipedia.
Wikipedia.
The World Wide Web.
There you go.
Megatron accesses it.
Anyways, I honestly, the fact that you see us pontificating, for lack of a better word, to this extent, is just proof that these guys are really... This would be a coin flip in my mind. It's not even...
I would agree with that.
I think Nimrod would win, personally.
There's so many variables for each of them, like so many things about each character.
And you were talking about how you have to work...
You
were talking about how you have to work uphill against the adaptability thing. I totally have to work uphill against the popularity of Megatron.
Oh,
that's right.
That's why we're putting Nimrod's name first in the video.
Alright. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so if you're listening to it still at this point, first off, thank you. You're awesome, Sauce. While I hold the jar of applesauce in front of me.
I agree. You are awesome, Sauce, if you've listened to this point about us basically just bitch back and forth.
Yeah. Also, don't forget to vote Comic Vine. The link will be in the description. If you're somehow already this far into the video and the link isn't up, that's because I am still in the process of making it, or I haven't made it yet. So just check back later, I guess. Yeah. That's really all I have to say.
I don't really have much more to say either, but Nimrod wins.
Fatality.
Fatality. Tipsy!